Happy Thursday, Sunday, Tuesday, whatever day you decide to watch this. Enjoy. This is going to be our final installment of the Mexican American War. We will not be returning for a season 2, so I'm super sorry. I know you guys are super bummed. This is actually one of the quicker lecture sections that I'm actually doing. And this is going to be just talking about what was the United States doing in the actual territory, what we consider Mexico today. Mexico, as many of you know, has a very diverse terrain. Mexico City itself is kind of in this bowl where you have to actually climb over mountains and whatnot to get down to Mexico. So we are going to, and when I say we, I mean the United States is going to come in from the Gulf Coast, and they are going to launch an amphibious invasion, and they are then going to march their way overland to Mexico City, which will take, like I said, about 4 months. So it's going to take them a while. Majority of people who fight in the Mexican-American War for the United States actually die of diseases, not in actual fighting and combat. That's neither here nor there, but I just find that interesting. And you'll see that in the American Civil War too. It's like, yes, a lot of people died from battle wounds and things like that, but it was also diseases. You see that in a lot of wars if you're under extreme conditions. So, and before I get off tangent here, I'll keep going. So the person we had actually leading the United States Army or military in Mexico was actually General Winfield Scott. General Winfield Scott was the exact same guy who led the Cherokee Removal Act, or the Cherokee Trail of Tears. So we will hear about him, Cherokee Trail of Tears, under Andrew Jackson. Now we're hearing about him again, approximately 8 years later. So he's going to be leading this. And we'll hear about him again at the very beginning of the American Civil War. So this is one of those movers and shakers that I mentioned that just doesn't go away for a long time. This is a picture of General Winfield Scott as he is older. This would be right around the American Civil War time. You can see, and this is not to be mean at all, that he is not as fit and trim as his younger self. So he is going to be 60 years old. His nickname is Old Fuss and Feathers because he was all about the pomp and circumstance of it, of like the polished military uniform. And there's nothing wrong with that, but he was also very strict with his men. And so everybody gets a nickname. Zachary Taylor was Old Rough and Ready, I'm assuming because he was kind of rough with his language and he was always ready to fight. I don't know. So what's happening? This is a picture of Scott's campaign. First of all, he's going to attack the port city of Veracruz. He has 10,000 troops with him. He's going to begin using an amphibious invasion. Amphibious, think like a frog. They're on land and water. So he's got to come in through the Gulf of Mexico. He's going to attack. The problem is the port of Veracruz sees them coming in and actually does not fire any cannons, does not actually offer any kind of resistance to them. Essentially, the port of Veracruz allows them to come into the harbor and disembark and basically lay siege to the city, which will take about a month. So had they initially made it harder for them to at least disembark and get off the boats, then this might have been a different story. But there's a lot of times, and you'll see this throughout history, any campaigns that you look at, any wars you look at, it will be a what-if situation. If they had done something different. We talk about it in class sometimes, like how many times was how many times was his life it threatened, and everything just kind of didn't work out. So, result of the Battle of Veracruz is that the U.S. Will lay siege to it. It takes a little less than a month, and basically the port of Veracruz will fall. This is obviously after we lay siege to it and fire on the city, and eventually they're like, okay, we give up. Meanwhile, General Winfield Scott, after they take Veracruz, realizes he has to make it to Mexico City. Because in a way, it's also like an ideal situation of capture the flag. If you think about World War II, what city were the Russians and the United States and the Allies, what city were they all encroaching upon? Berlin. Everybody wants to take that city. And so this is just the exact same thing in the Mexican-American War, is capture the flag of Mexico and Mexico City. And so Scott's going to spend his time marching north, and it's going to be, imagine if you've been to Mexico, which I have, it can get super hot. He's doing this in the summer. A lot of Mexico is desert or desert-like conditions, so it's not going to be ideal, and he's going to have to fight hand-to-hand combat the entire time. So when he comes upon a village, he might have to fight that. When he comes upon a smaller town, he's going to have to fight there. So he's going to have to kind of fight his way through through all these different areas on his trek towards Mexico City. Once he actually reaches Mexico City, this is where Santa Anna of the Texas independence fame, even though he lost Texas, they actually asked him to come back because people were like, oh, we don't like you anymore, General Santa Anna. And so he went and lived in exile in Cuba for a while. But then once the Mexican-American War came out, they didn't have anybody. So they like, hey, Santa Anna, can you come back and defend our country? He's like, I will do it. Viva la Mexico. And he does it. And this is another loss for him. But for the Battle of Mexico City, Santa Anna puts up a blockade. And it does take a while for the United States to break through this. But after a few weeks, he's able to capture Mexico City. Like I said, I'm not going to go into major detail, but I do want to point out, even though this picture is a little bit pixelated, you'll see Ulysses S. Grant at the capture of Mexico City. That's Ulysses S. Grant of Union fame during the American Civil War. That's future president at this time period. Obviously not. He's not going to be future president in 2020. Future president post-Civil War. So the result of the Mexican-American War, just to wrap this up in a nice and neat little bow for you, it ends essentially in 1847. 13,000 U.S. troops are dead. And they, like I said, 11,000. I know you guys can read that, but 11,000 die from diseases. This could be yellow fever. This could be from typhoid, dysentery, different things like that. And also, remember when Henry David Thoreau, back in my first lecture, went on this civil disobedience and decided, I will not pay for this war. You cannot collect that dollar tax. They had estimated that this war would cost $10 million, and it cost 10 times that much. That's pretty much going to be blanket across this, I would say, just about every war that we've ever been in, is that people are like, oh, this is only going to cost you $5. And then it's like $1 billion later. We are chronically, I think Americans are chronic underestimators of how much things are going to cost, because we need people to buy into the fact that we can do this, we can afford this war, we can do that. And then once you're in the war, you can't then back out and be like, wait, you said it was only going to be 10 million. It's now at 50 million. We quit. So people they're already invested in winning this war, so they're going to constantly keep the war machine running. Then you have the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. This is where the United States gains essentially our west coast. We have California, Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, and parts of Colorado and Wyoming. Now, keep in mind when I say parts of Colorado and Wyoming, that's because some of the parts of present-day Colorado and Wyoming were actually already purchased during the Louisiana Purchase. So that's why we just get the additional part that we didn't get when we made that purchase from Napoleon and the French for the Louisiana Purchase back under Thomas Jefferson. Mexico agrees to give up that territory north of the Rio Grande. So that was that territory that Zachary Taylor encroached upon. And we know this today because we always talk about the Rio Grande and people crossing the Rio Grande and things like that. Normally I say Rio Grande River, but I know that's redundant because it's just basically saying big river. The U.S. actually gives Mexico $15 million. We originally said we were going to pay $30 million for it, so we got a bonus. We basically took half off. And we also took on debt of Mexico to U.S. citizens. So we agreed to pay U.S. citizens who were owed money by Mexico. We agreed to pay that off as well. So really the important thing from the Mexican-American War is that we get the territory that will then later lead to the American Revolution, and it will lead to the 49ers and the Gold Rush. Thank you. Sorry. Gold Rush. And then, of course, in Colorado and other parts, we have silver deposits that will come upon. After the fact, we do eventually end up purchasing one of the last chunks of our territory, and that's going to be the Gadsden Purchase. And then you can see very clearly on this map that we paid $10 million. So keep in mind, I just want to point out, we paid $15 million for essentially all of the West Coast, and we ended up paying $10 million, almost the same amount. I mean, obviously, I know there's a big difference between $10 million and $5 million, but whatever. You guys get my point. Hopefully you get my point. The Gadsden Purchase is $10 million, and we achieve essentially the southern border of the United States today. So, as it says, don't be sad. That is the Mexican-American War. It's important because we have a lot of movers and shakers. It's important because this is where we essentially tie up most of the United States territory boundaries into a nice, neat little bow. Obviously, we don't have Alaska. We haven't purchased Alaska, and we don't have control of Hawaii yet. But essentially, around this time, pre-Civil War, we have what is considered the continental United States. The boundaries are set. The borders are there. Now it's just about getting people to move there and establish the United States control over that territory. So once again, I hope you guys have a fantastic week this week. And I hope you guys are be able to get stuff done. And I'll see you guys